Andrea and Graham, why we restart the broadcast? Do you want to try and get your presentation? Let's just get this presentation up on the screen before we do anything.
Okay. So. Yep.
Right. Looks like we're on. Graham, I've muted you at the moment, but it looks like you're working now. So I believe that we're back live, and I think you can start again, Andrea. Sorry, and Graham, sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay, so if we just go to the picture, this is, as I've just explained, is our STEPS framework, and that forms the basis of all of our activities in relation to the people strategy. There's the three elements: step in, step forward, step up. And what I'm not intending to do is go through every single item on that. What I'm proposing to do is actually just focus on 5 areas that were highlighted in our people strategy and that had been picked up nationally as key areas for improvement, and that's also reflected in the national people strategy. So on your screens you should see the 5 areas, which were strengthening leadership, cultural values, strengthening our ability to provide service by diversifying staff, creating and supporting health and well-being, and ways of working that respond to service model needs. So what I'm going to do, members, is just basically touch on each of those 5 areas and give you a short update in relation to some of the recent activity. So the first one then is strengthening line management. And as we've just been discussing in the previous meeting, this year we launched a new high potential development scheme. And this was very different to previous schemes that we've done, which have had very much an external focus and looking at undergraduates. We changed the emphasis this year so that we were actually inviting applications from graduates and people with work experience. And we also opened that programme up to both internal candidates, green and grey book, and also external graduates. And the actual reaction to that was very positive. Obviously, there was a very good comms campaign that went along with that. You can see the brochure on the screen. And we had 42 applicants this year, and we were absolutely thrilled with the calibre of all of the candidates, and it actually made the job very difficult. So, cutting to the chase, we had 42 applicants. We interviewed 10 at the very end of a very long process, and we have now made an offer to 2 exceptional candidates, one with a PhD and one who's a qualified solicitor. In my personal opinion, I think we've got some fantastic potential to progress these individuals beyond the role of station manager, which is the destination for the scheme, and quite possibly for future principal officers. So the 2 candidates will be starting with us in December, that's been a really, really good campaign. The next one I just wanted to touch on is our Step Up Development Programme. You'll all be familiar with this. It's actually been in operation now for 4 years, and to date we're actually on our 10th cohort. So something like 120 members of our staff have now been through this programme. We have been actually sort of amending it as we've gone along based on feedback, and the programme is now extended to both grey and green book officers. You'll see their ILM level 5. So now if you go on this programme, you also can do a final piece of work, which is a reflective assignment, which will give you an ILM level 5 qualification. This year, we're also looking at developing a new programme, which is called the Step Into Leadership Programme. And this is going to be launched in the spring next year. And what this is a lower level, more practical based training for first time supervisors. So we're looking here at people that have never been supervisors, that are either firefighters, preparing for crew managers, their next step, or newly promoted Green Book staff. But that will be very much practical training at that first supervisor level. All of the courses that we've run this year, whilst there was a bit of a pause when COVID started, we've had to now adapt all of our programmes that can be delivered virtually, and that's now been done with some success. And then finally this year we did launch a new programme, a degree sponsorship programme for all of our internal staff. This is an offering where staff can apply to do a university degree via a higher apprenticeship programme. We have offered 9 places this year for 7 people to do a leadership degree at Chester University and 2 people to do a fast-track leadership degree in a shorter period of time at Manchester Metropolitan University. So we've got 9 people going through that programme. It's a very good way of spending our money against the levy. And 3 of the 9 people that are on that degree programme are also Green Book. So this is obviously extending opportunities for Green Book as well. Moving on to the next slide, please. You'll know, members, that this year we agreed a new set of core values following a very comprehensive consultation with the staff and obviously yourselves. The upshot of this is people like the core values. They're very simple. They translate easily across to every part of the service. And really the next step now, and the bit we're working on, is actually trying to now embed these to make sure they really do drive our culture, people's behaviours and our relationships. So far, if you go in any station in the service, there will be a large board on the core values. So we're making sure that we keep them very visible in our buildings. We're also looking at how we can embed the core values in our HR processes. So we're developing a new appraisal process, and it will be very much within that next year. And also we've developed a comms campaign. So every time we develop a new document, we try and make it very clear how that relates to our core values. So on the screen here, you'll see there's 2 documents that we've launched this year. One was around Ramadan and supporting Muslim colleagues, and that was obviously the be inclusive. And what we're trying to do is make sure it's very clear which core value those relate to on all of our documents. Okay, so moving on, please. The next area of improvement nationally was about equality and diversity. And this is a very busy slide because I think we know there's always a lot to talk about in this area. So we've maintained our position as number 3 in Stonewall Workplace Index this year, and we're still the top Northwest employer and emergency service, and that has now been for the 4th consecutive year. This year, though, we did get some additional plaudits for our work around transgender, and also, without wanting to embarrass the chief, Mark Cashin was nominated as the Senior Leader of the Year for the North West of England region. We're continuing to support the growth of all of our networks. We're seeing increasing membership in our Limitless. So the picture on the bottom right was actually taken at International Women's Day this year. And the Limitless group, which is our women's network, actually ran and coordinated that conference. We've done a lot of work around menopause this year, and we're just about to launch some training for menopause champions. Limitless group at the moment, we've got 166 females in our organisation. It's not exclusively open to women. We've currently got 170 members in our Limitless group, and it was really gratifying to see so many members of our male colleagues at the conference supporting the ladies. Another area of focus really in the coming months, and this is really against a backdrop of all the Black Lives Matter campaigns this year, is very much around our Black and minority ethnic communities and staff. That we know is going to be an area of focus for the HMI, and we're putting a lot of stake into making sure that we can demonstrate a lot of progress in that area. We've recently launched a network for our Black and minority ethnic employees. We've currently only got 14 members, but we are hoping that that will gain momentum, and we're going to open up an allies programme as well. And then last month was Black History Month, and we had a lot of events running throughout October, open to staff to obviously raise awareness of our Black History Month activities. And then for those of you that have not already signed up, we've got our Proud to Provide conference this week, which is one of our annual events. And we're really excited that we've got a fantastic lineup of people, including Lord Cashman, who was one of the founders of Stonewall. So we're looking forward to that. And that is open up to all fire and rescue services partners across Cheshire and our police colleagues as well. So that's a busy screen. I'm moving on to another busy screen, which is an area of real focus this year, which has been around our mental health. Now we've got our dedicated post of Lawrence Howard, who's now been in month for 15 months. And he is effectively now doing like a bit of a permanent world tour around the service, raising awareness and supporting staff. And even though that's been difficult doing that over Skype, and he certainly does prefer that face-to-face, we've maintained that momentum, and he does have regular visits with staff. Last month, we launched our mental health steering group, which is a forum that will meet quarterly. And that will focus on ensuring that we really do keep mental health and well-being as a corporate priority. And we've got about 25 staff from all areas of the organisation represented on that group. And we've also got a member of the Fire Authority, Councillor Steve Wright, who is our member champion. We've been doing a lot of training this year. We've got TRIM practitioner training, which is trauma risk management. We have now cohorts of mental health first aiders. And organically, because there is such a lot of enthusiasm and interest in the area of wellbeing, we have a wellbeing community as well, which has actually been set up by a member of staff, and that's growing in momentum. But I think effectively what we're trying to do with the training and establishing TRIM practitioners and mental health first aiders is to really normalise the discussions around mental health and just make sure that we can develop a really strong peer support network across the service to identify and address problems early. So it's not necessarily top down. We think that if we keep this very much a peer-led initiative, I think we'll see a lot of value in that. We've recently celebrated World Mental Health Day. This is something that we now want to commit to as an annual event. Obviously, it was different this year because we had to do it virtually, but there was lots of good things that we did. We had a tea and toast quiz, we had podcasts, we had a cooking programme on healthy cooking, which was a competition between stations, and lots of things like yoga and virtual sessions that staff could follow along on. And then finally, members, we are about to bring to the Fire Authority next month our first ever mental health strategy. Really, there is a very strong aspiration, and this is members and staff alike, to obviously be a beacon of excellence. And this strategy is very important, not just as we didn't want to just have it as part of our people strategy. We wanted to set our stall out and have a complete roadmap as to how we can achieve this beacon of excellence status in mental health. And that will be coming to the Fire Authority meeting in December. The next area is on ways of working. And certainly this year has prompted so many new ways of working because of COVID. So I'm not going to dwell on this because I know Graham's about to do a presentation on some of the findings of the survey. But in terms of changing the way we do things, we've seen a lot in terms of home working, agile working. We're obviously using technology now to have this meeting, whereas normally we'd be around a table. And we've recognised, although we're always very committed to clear communication, we've recognised how very important it is during times of anxiety that the leadership and the clear communication from the top of the organisation is absolutely invaluable. So I think there is some definite longer term thinking around the use of technology for meetings, for training, and obviously we're going to be looking at the opportunity to allow staff to apply for working from home arrangements in the future on a more permanent basis. But I think what's really important, members, is that we've got to get the balance right between people being able to do their jobs and, you know, not becoming isolated, but also if they choose to apply that they may have more flexibility to work from home. And then the last area I just wanted to touch on in terms of different ways of working is really looking at things like our on-call recruitment. And this was something that was flagged in the people strategy back in 2019, because we were finding that attraction and retention of on-call is an ongoing challenge. So we've done a full review of the recruitment process. We are now, I think, in a position where we've got a quicker and slicker process. It's more clearer. We've got new materials so people can actually see the journey from a training perspective, also from a recruitment perspective. And we've actually accelerated the development of our on-call staff by putting on more training, more Mod 1 courses throughout the year. We've worked with our OHU partners to make sure that they're more agile in terms of offering evening and weekend appointments for medicals. And we've really used our social media to the best of our ability in terms of using Facebook to target particular audiences within 5-minute radiuses of our stations, and also using it for doing things like Q&A sessions over Facebook, where people can actually engage with us directly and learn more about the role. So I'm going to pause there, members. That they are sort of, as I say, that was a whistle-stop tour in terms of those 5 areas, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Andrea. Before I ask members to come in, I've got one myself. On page 15 of the document, and it says on the right-hand column, given our ageing workforce, we also understand it is essential to act now to attract a new generation of employees. Quite right. What we also need to do, though, is to ensure that there is the right level of training that is available for members of staff to enable them to step forward and then step up. Obviously, if we're advertising nationally, you can get people who may be able to do the job, but there may well be people within our organisation that, if they are given the proper training, that they may or may not be aware of, then we can get them to do just that, step forward, step up. Really, really important to give people within our organisation every opportunity.
Yes, and I'm happy just to comment on that, because I think that is definitely an area that we are looking at. I would actually like to create a step out or a step away element to this strategy. But what we're doing at the moment, we are looking at people that potentially are approaching retirement age, and we're trying to help them in terms of things like employability skills, because a lot of people have not necessarily been interviewed in recent times. So things like pre-retirement courses. We're also giving them pensions and tax seminar help, because it's the world of fire pensions is very complicated, and people need to be able to make informed decisions. So certainly in terms of employability and leaving the organisation, we're trying to set people up for success. Generally speaking, people, I'm always trying to encourage people to recognise transferable skills, and people can move within the organisation as well at any time, any point of their career. So, but I completely agree that the ageing workforce, we must not underestimate the value they bring.
Thank you, Andrew. The other comment I've got is I'm very pleased to see that mental health is playing a prominent part in your presentation, and I think the appointment we made 15 months ago has really proved that we needed to do it, and it's worked very well, albeit that COVID and virtual meetings have got in the way, but nevertheless, very, very important. Have any members got any comments for Andrea's presentation?
Councillor Steph Nelson.
Chair, Councillor Nelson.
The two new members, or the 2 new officers we've just recruited, I understand they're both female, which is good for us. And the second one is mental health. Do we work with organisations as well on mental health?
Yes, we do. We are trying to develop as many networks as we can to tap into resources. So, for example, on our Mental Health World Day, we actually had a partner who came in and offered free yoga sessions. So, I think the whole world of mental health at the moment is so prevalent in all organisations. If we can share resources and best practices, that's definitely something that's on Lawrence's agenda.
Thanks, Andrea. Are there any other members wish to make a comment or ask a question? Andrew, did you want to say something?
No, Chair. No one else has indicated, Chair, at this point.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for the input.
Can I move the recommendation, Chair?
Yep. Is that seconded? We agreed the presentation?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Agreed, yeah.
My picking.
Thank you, members.
Okay. Item 3 is the presentation on COVID-19 and the staff survey action plan, and Graham Worrell.
Thank you, Chair. Graham Worrell, Policy and Transformation Officer here. I'll just upload the presentation, so if you bear with me for 2 seconds, I'll get it on the screen. Okay, so just a quick check to make sure people can see that screen.
I can see the red covered document.
Great, yeah, see that.
Lovely, that's great. Okay, thank you, members. Thank you for having me here today at the staffing committee. I'm going to give you a brief update on the progress of the COVID-19 staff survey. I know that members have already had the results of the survey, and we've discussed that at previous meetings, so I'm just going to do a quick recap on the survey itself. It's a 3-week survey over summer. It was shorter than our normal staff surveys that we have every 2 years, so this was a very specific survey, largely focused on COVID-19. We had a couple of free text questions in there as well, but we also did a few of our standard questions so we can benchmark some issues against our normal staff survey, just to see where staff perceptions and feelings are. It was a really good response rate of 71% of staff. So it's a robust set of data and really does encapsulate the views and feelings of people from across the workforce, from every single department and location as well. As you'll be aware from previous surveys, the service makes a donation to the Firefighters Charity for each response to try and drum up support for both the charity and also drum up responses for the survey. So we, as a result of the survey, we raised nearly £1,700 for the Firefighters Charity, which is much needed given the current situation with COVID in the charity as well. The key feedback from the survey really showed that a lot of staff found there was a positive feedback on the service's approach to COVID-19. So a lot of people felt that the service had really put people at the centre of the response and had really considered the impacts upon people. So lots of positive comments on how the service actually had approached and decided on what actions to take in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of the more practical feedback was people felt there was a need for them to understand what COVID-19 means for them in practice in a work context. So when we say COVID-19 secure workplaces, what does that actually mean for me in practice? You know, when I go to work on a Monday, what does that actually mean for me in the workplace? What changes are involved in that? What would happen if I tested positive in the workplace? And kind of the really practical elements of how COVID would impact me in my day-to-day role. For those members of staff who were working from home, some of the feedback was around the support and guidance of working from home for a longer period. So actually a lot of people felt, those who were working from home felt that it was a positive. They felt that they were kind of trusted to get on with the job, and they were kind of felt more valued as a result of that. You know, they were left to kind of crack on and kind of keep in touch with the manager, but kind of do their work. And it also helped with work-life balance in some people as well. So particularly those who had a long commute day in, day out, it gave them that time back. So a lot of people actually felt that it was a bit of a positive working from home. But there was that need to put stuff in place if people were going to be working from home for longer periods. And then the final bit of key feedback really is around the need to keep staff engaged. So people were kind of quite clear that, you know, they knew they were kind of a little bit more isolated than they would be normally. They couldn't have those normal day-to-day interactions with members of staff that they could do in a kind of normal world, as it were. So there was a need to make sure people kept in touch with each other and were engaged with the rest of the workforce, but also that we focus on keeping physically and mentally well. So the very different times, you know, people are kind of stuck indoors potentially for a lot of time, potentially on their own, a lot more than they would be. So a real need to focus on making sure we're mentally and physically well. So this feedback was encapsulated into an action plan. The copy of the action plan is the lower picture there, but the results and the action plan were put online on the staff intranet, so staff could see the results and what that meant for them, but they could also see the action plan as well. And really, I'll just go through some of the key bits on the action plan. So in terms of the plan itself, it was really there to address that key feedback that I just went through on the previous slide. So what we kind of focused on was those testing procedures for COVID-19, the adaptations to workplaces for COVID-19, things around cleaning routines, working from home and how people can safely work from home in a safe way if they're doing it for a long period of time, There were questions around caring responsibilities. So, for example, people with either childcare responsibilities or people who dealt with a vulnerable member of their family, or had kind of caring responsibilities for an elderly relative, and also mental health and wellbeing signposting as well. And to address that feedback, a lot of the guidance documents have either been developed or updated, which provide information on these as well. So two aspects, two key documents really are around the COVID-19 Safe Workplace Guide that was issued to staff, and also Working from Home guide that was issued to members of staff as well. So in terms of the Safe Workplace Guide, that has all the information that you'd need in terms of what safe workplace actually means for you in practice. It contains information on those cleaning routines and what to do if you kind of feel unwell, and a symptom checker. But also, importantly, it does touch upon mental health and wellbeing support as well. So towards the back of the document, there's kind of support and guidance and advice there to either refer people onto avenues of support that exist within the service, or to speak to an external provider, but around those common areas that may kind of crop up through COVID-19. So things around anxiety potentially, or stress, those kind of issues are covered within that guide. The Working from Home guidance contains further information and support on how to work from home safely. So how to work within the realms of your DSE